The world of Viora 9 burned like a wounded star. The air was thick with smoke, fire, and the sound of distant thunder from the skyships above. Human and Vioran forces had been fighting for months, turning the green jungle planet into a graveyard of broken machines and fallen soldiers. Among the chaos moved a young human soldier named Rian. His armor was scratched, his rifle half empty, but his spirit had not yet broken. He had been part of the Earth Union's drop team sent to destroy a Vioran command post. The mission had gone wrong the moment they landed. The Viorans had been ready for them. Explosions tore through the trees, scattering the humans in every direction. Ryan had lost contact with his squad 2 hours ago. He walked through the jungle carefully, every step echoing softly over the ground covered with ash and leaves. The trees were blackened, their trunks split by plasma fire. Overhead, the sky was filled with glowing clouds that pulsed with lightning from the upper atmosphere battles. It looked almost beautiful in a terrible way. Ryan stopped beside a fallen transport. The wreckage still smoked, its hull marked with Vioran symbols. The ship had crashed recently. The smell of burning fuel filled the air. He could hear faint sounds coming from inside. Someone was still alive. Ryan climbed through the broken metal frame, pushing aside fallen panels. Inside the dim light, he saw several alien figures lying still. The Viorans looked strange to human eyes, tall with pale blue skin and silver eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Their armor was elegant, marked with royal emblems. They were guards, and from their positions they had died protecting someone. A faint sound broke the silence, a weak breath, almost like a whisper. Rian turned and saw her. A Vioran woman lay pinned beneath a fallen beam. She was wearing light armor and a crest of gold upon her chest plate, the mark of Vioran royalty. Even without knowing her name, Ryan understood who she was. The human intelligence reports had shown her image before. This was Queen Alara, ruler of the Vioran Empire, the woman said to have led her people into this war with humans. For a long moment, Rian stood frozen. His orders were clear. Vioran leaders were enemy targets. Capturing or killing them could end the war. But looking at her now, barely breathing and trapped under the wreck, he saw not an enemy but someone helpless and afraid. She was injured, her skin pale and her breathing slow. He dropped his weapon to the floor and knelt beside her. "You can understand me?" he asked quietly. Her eyes opened weakly. "Human," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why are you here?" Ryan hesitated, then answered honestly, "I came to fight, but not to watch someone die like this." He tried to lift the beam, but it was too heavy. The wreckage shifted, groaning under its own weight. He looked around and found a broken piece of metal that could be used as a lever. Sweat ran down his face as he worked, pushing with all his strength. At last, the beam moved just enough for him to pull her free. She winced in pain, clutching her leg. Ryan quickly tore part of his sleeve and wrapped it around her wound. "Stay still," he said. "You're going to be fine." Ilara looked at him in confusion. "Why help me, human? Your kind and mine are at war." Rian gave a tired smile. "Because right now you're not my enemy. You're someone who needs help." He helped her stand, supporting her weight on his shoulder. She was taller than him, but too weak to walk alone. They made their way out of the burning wreck, into the open jungle. The ground shook as another explosion echoed nearby. The war had not ended. It was only moving closer. "Your soldiers will be searching for you," Ryan said as they walked. "We need to move before both sides find us." Ilara nodded faintly. "There is a Vioran outpost north of here. If we can reach it, my people will find us." The journey was slow and dangerous. The jungle was alive with the sounds of war. Distant plasma fire, the hum of drones scanning the ground, the cries of wounded soldiers on both sides. Once a pair of human scout drones passed overhead. Ryan quickly pulled Ilara under the cover of thick vines, holding her still until the machines moved on. "You're hiding me from your own soldiers," she whispered. "If they see you, they'll shoot," Ryan said. "I'm not letting that happen." Hours passed. The sun set behind the thick clouds and the jungle turned dark, lit only by fires in the distance. They stopped near a stream where Rian found clean water. Ilara sat quietly, watching him as he filled a small container. "You are not like the others," she said softly. "Most humans I've met speak only of conquest." Ryan looked at the water, his reflection broken by ripples. "I don't know about conquest. I just want to survive this war and maybe help others survive too." Ilara's silver eyes softened. "Perhaps that is what makes your kind strong. You fight with reason, not hate." They rested for a short while before continuing. The forest grew thicker, and the ground more uneven. At one point, they came across the remains of a Vieran patrol, destroyed by human fire. Alara knelt beside them, touching the emblem on one of the fallen soldiers' armor. Ryan turned away to give her silence. He understood grief even without words. Finally, after what felt like endless walking, they reached the edge of a deep canyon. Across it, faint lights glowed, blue and gold like stars. "That is my outpost," Alara said, her voice trembling with relief. "We made it." But their relief was short-lived. A human gunship appeared above the canyon, its searchlights cutting through the trees. It was heading straight toward them. Ryan knew what that meant. The ship was looking for any survivors to eliminate. "Get down," he whispered, pulling her to the ground. The ship's light swept over their position. Ryan held his breath, covering her with his body as the engines roared overhead. The ship passed once, then turned for another scan. There was no time. He looked at Alara, then at the canyon below. "We have to jump," he said. Her eyes widened. "It's too far." "Better than getting shot," Ryan replied. Without waiting, he helped her to her feet, and together they leapt into the dark. The wind tore at them as they fell into the canyon, crashing into the water below. The cold was shocking, but it saved them from the gunship's search. They surfaced gasping, carried by the current down the river. Ryan pulled Alara toward the shore, both coughing and shivering. She looked at him, her hair clinging to her face, her eyes filled with something between fear and wonder. "You risked your life again," she said. Ryan smiled faintly. "I guess that's becoming a habit." They rested on the riverbank for a while, catching their breath. The lights of the gunship disappeared into the distance. Above them, the stars of Viora shone bright and cold. Alara turned to him. "You could have left me. You could have gone back to your people." Ryan shook his head. "Not until I know you're safe." She looked at him silently for a long time, as if trying to understand a creature she could not explain. "Humans," she said quietly, almost to herself. "You are a strange kind of being." "Maybe," Ryan said with a tired smile. "But sometimes strange can do good things." By dawn, they reached the other side of the canyon. A Vieran patrol found them soon after. The soldiers aimed their weapons at Ryan instantly, but the Queen raised her hand. "Stop," she ordered weakly. "He saved my life. He is not your enemy." The guards hesitated, confused but obedient. They lifted her onto a hover stretcher. Ryan stood aside, his uniform torn and his face covered with dirt. As they prepared to leave, Alara looked back at him. "Come with us," she said. "You will be safe." Ryan shook his head. "If your people see a human in your camp, they'll think it's a trick." "I'll find my own way." Alara's expression softened. "Then may the stars watch over you, Ryan of Earth." He gave a small nod. "And you, Queen of Viora." The Vioran soldiers carried her away, their lights fading into the misty jungle. Ryan stood alone by the river, watching until she disappeared. Then he turned and walked into the forest once more, his figure vanishing among the shadows and the rising smoke of war. That was the last time anyone saw him. The battle on Viora ended soon after, but his name was lost in reports and silence. Only the Queen remembered the human who saved her life and vanished without a trace. The great capital city of Viora Prime floated high above silver oceans, its towers shining under twin suns. From the royal balcony, Queen Alara stood in silence, watching the calm sky that once burned with warships. 5 years ago, this same world had been covered in fire and smoke. Now it was peaceful again. But to her, the silence still carried the echoes of battle. Every morning she stood there, remembering the human who saved her on Viora 9. No one else knew his name. The Vieran soldiers who found her only said a human soldier disappeared into the jungle after rescuing her. Many in her court believed she had imagined it, a dream born from pain and confusion. But Alara knew it had been real. His words, his calm eyes, his courage, all of it lived in her memory like a light that never went out. When she closed her eyes, she could still see him carrying her through the fire, refusing to leave her behind. A man from a race once called primitive by Viorans, yet braver than anyone she had known. His name, Ryan, stayed hidden in her heart. The Vioran High Council entered the royal chamber that morning. 12 elders with pale silver robes and proud faces. They bowed slightly before speaking. "Your Majesty," said Elder Varen, the oldest of them, 5 years have passed since the ceasefire. The peace treaty with the humans has been respected, but our people grow restless. The colonies ask if we should renew our strength. They fear humans may rise against us again. Ilara turned from the balcony. Her voice was calm but firm. There will be no new war. Humanity does not seek it, and neither do I. The council exchanged uneasy looks. Elder Varen stepped forward again. Majesty, you speak as though you know them. But humans are unpredictable. They expand quickly. Their fleets double each year. One day they will look at Viora as a rival. Ilara walked to the center of the room, her long silver robe flowing behind her. Perhaps, she said, but on Viora 9, a human soldier risked his life to save mine. When I could barely move, he carried me through the burning jungle. He had every reason to hate me, yet he protected me. I cannot see such a species as our enemy. The chamber fell silent. The elders shifted uncomfortably. The story had spread before, but few believed it. To most Viorans, humans were considered rough and impatient, strong but uncivilized. Majesty, another counselor said gently, your compassion honors you, but stories from the battlefield often blur with imagination. It is unlikely a lone human soldier found you. Your guards said you were unconscious when they found you. Perhaps this memory is a dream created by your healing mind. Ilara's silver eyes hardened. It was not a dream. Her voice carried the weight of truth. No one dared argue further. She dismissed the council for the day, though their unease remained. When the chamber emptied, her attendant Lear, a young advisor, approached quietly. My queen, he said, you could have chosen to forget the past. Why do you keep defending him? Ilara looked out the window again. Because he defended me without reason. I was his enemy, yet he gave me hope. If we forget such acts, we forget what peace truly means. Lear bowed his head. Then what will you do with that memory? I will honor it, she said softly. That evening she visited the Hall of Voices, a great hall beneath the palace filled with crystal statues of Viora's heroes. She walked among the glowing figures, generals, scientists, explorers, all remembered by history. At the end of the hall stood an empty pedestal. She stopped there and touched the smooth stone. This place, she whispered, is for the one who has no name. A technician entered behind her, confused. Your Majesty, who shall this memorial represent? Ilara turned to him with a faint smile. A human soldier. He saved my life on Viora 9. Build his statue here beside our heroes. The technician hesitated. A human, Your Majesty. It will anger many. Then let them be angry, she said. Peace was built on his courage, and so the statue was made. It was simple. A tall figure in human armor holding no weapon, standing calmly as if guarding the future. Beneath it, she ordered a short inscription, to the unknown human who saved a queen and ended a war. When the statue was unveiled, Viora's people gathered in silence. Some watched with confusion, others with quiet respect. Children pointed curiously at the strange figure of a human. The story spread slowly, reaching even the outer colonies. Some mocked it, calling it the Queen's legend. Others began to wonder if there was more truth in her tale than they once believed. Months passed, and the peace between Viora and Earth grew stronger. Trade opened. Ambassadors visited each other's worlds. Scientists shared knowledge. The wounds of war started to heal, but Ilara's heart never forgot the man who disappeared. Every year on the day she was rescued, she visited the statue and placed a white crystal flower at its base. Wherever you are, Ryan of Earth, she would whisper, your kindness still guards this world. Yet even as peace bloomed, dark rumors began to reach her palace. Vioran scouts near the outer rim reported that small ships were vanishing without trace, both Vioran and human. At first it seemed like piracy, but soon, entire convoys disappeared in silent sectors of space. During a meeting with her military commander, General Torin, she listened to a grim report. 5 patrols lost in the same sector, Torin said. No distress calls, no wreckage. It is as if they were erased, Ilara frowned. And what of the humans? They report the same, Majesty. A dozen of their ships missing in nearby regions. So someone attacks both sides? Or something, Torin said. No one knows who or what. The Queen walked to the star map displayed before her. The empty region flickered red, an unclaimed stretch of space between both empires. The humans call it the Void Line, she said. Our ancestors once used it for secret experiments. Perhaps something remains there. Torin crossed his arms. If you allow, Majesty, I will send a war fleet. Ilara shook her head. No, I will not risk sparking fear or mistrust. The humans must not think we plan for war again. I will speak with them directly. The general hesitated. You intend to go yourself? I do, she said firmly. If danger threatens both sides, we must face it together. Torrin bowed deeply. Then I will prepare the royal vessel. That night, Elara sat alone in her chamber. The room was quiet, filled with soft light from the moons. She opened a small metal box kept beside her desk. Inside it lay a single human dog tag, old, scratched, and half-burned. It had been found near the crash site where she was rescued. The name engraved on it was faint but still visible. Ryan Holt. She held it gently in her hand. So that is your name, she whispered. I never thanked you properly. Her eyes grew distant. If you were still alive, would you walk among your people or vanish into the stars again? She smiled sadly. Perhaps you belong to the stars now. In the following weeks, she began diplomatic talks with Earth once more. The Earth Union accepted her request for a joint investigation into the missing ships. The meeting was to take place aboard a neutral station, orbiting a dead moon near the void line. It would be the first time the Queen personally traveled outside. Viora, since the war ended, her advisors were nervous. Lear pleaded with her. Majesty, let the humans come here instead. If this is a trap, you could be in danger. Elara looked at him calmly. Peace always carries danger, Lear, but I trust humanity. I have seen their honor. As the royal vessel prepared for launch, she looked once more at the statue of the unknown human. The suns reflected off the white crystal flower at its base. She placed her hand against the cold metal and whispered, If you can hear me, Rian, I am still keeping your promise. Peace will not die. When her ship rose from Viora's sky and vanished into the stars, few could imagine what awaited her beyond the void line. Far away, in the shadows between worlds, a lone figure watched from an old outpost station. His face was older now, his eyes tired but sharp. On his wrist hung a Vioran royal crest, old and broken, taken from the wreck of a ship long ago. He turned his gaze toward the approaching royal vessel on his scanner. A soft voice escaped his lips. So you finally came, Your Majesty. It was Ryan Holt, alive and hidden among the stars. For 5 long years he had lived in silence, hunting something dark that moved between human and Vieran space. He had never wanted to be found, but now fate had brought the Queen back into his path once more, and so the next chapter of their story was about to begin. The galaxy had been silent for 5 years since the end of the Human-Vioran War. Trade routes had reopened, embassies exchanged greetings, and peace was written into the treaties. But peace in words was not the same as peace in hearts. On the borders of both empires, patrols began to vanish. Entire cargo convoys disappeared into the void without a signal or a trace. People whispered of shadows moving between stars, ships that came without lights and left no survivors. On the Vioran homeworld, Queen Elara sat in her throne chamber, studying reports that made her expression grow colder. Each hologram flickered with the same message, lost contact. Her advisors spoke in hushed tones around her, trying to sound calm while hiding their fear. One of them, the old Minister Varen, stepped forward. Your Majesty, the pattern is clear. These attacks strike both human and Vioran ships. Whoever commands them, they seek to ignite another war. We should not risk royal involvement. Let the fleets handle it. Elara looked up from the glowing data scrolls. The fleets have been handling it for 6 months, she said softly, and yet the shadows only grow bolder. I will not lead my people from a safe distance while they vanish into darkness. Prepare a ship. I will go myself. The hall fell silent. None dared oppose her directly, but their unease filled the air. They all remembered what had happened 5 years ago, how their queen had been saved by a human soldier and how she had ended the war afterward. Since then, she had ruled with calm strength, yet there was something different about her now. A quiet sadness lived behind her eyes, as if a part of her had been lost in that jungle long ago. When she announced her plan to lead a joint investigation with humans, both sides hesitated. Trust was fragile, and sending their leaders together into an unknown threat seemed dangerous. But Elara insisted, and the Human Council finally agreed. They sent a small fleet under the command of a quiet, masked officer known only as Commander Ryan Holt. The day of the mission's departure was calm. Viora's twin suns rose over silver domes and crystal towers. The Queen's ship, the Valiant Star, waited on the royal platform. Elara stepped aboard dressed not as a ruler but as a traveler, Simple robes of blue, her crown replaced by a slender circlet. Her guards stood ready, along with human officers arriving from orbit. Among them was the tall figure of Commander Ryan. His uniform was dark gray, his voice calm, and a black half-mask covered the lower part of his face. He saluted formally as she approached. "Your Majesty," he said, his tone respectful but steady. "I am honored to serve as your escort on behalf of the human fleet." For a moment, Alara's gaze lingered on his eyes. There was something familiar in them, something she had seen once in the smoke and fire of Viora 9. Her heart skipped, but she quickly looked away. "The honor is shared, Commander," she said. "May this mission bring truth, not more loss." As the fleet left orbit, the Queen's ship led the way, followed by 3 human escorts and 2 Vieran scouts. Their destination was the border system of Arendor, where the last convoy had disappeared. Days passed in the silent darkness of space. The crew worked calmly, and communication between human and Vioran officers grew easier as they shared tasks. Ilara spent much of her time in the observation hall looking out at the stars. There were millions of them, cold, distant, beautiful, and yet she could not shake the strange feeling that something watched her from beyond the light. Late one night, footsteps echoed softly behind her. "You should rest, Your Majesty," said Commander Ryan. His voice was quiet, yet there was a firmness that reminded her of someone she once knew. "I cannot rest when my people vanish," she replied, not turning. "And you, Commander? Do you ever rest?" He paused. "Not often," he said after a moment. There was a silence between them, filled only by the hum of the engines. Ilara turned slowly, her gaze searching his masked face. "You remind me of someone," she said softly. "Someone I owe more than I can ever repay." His eyes met hers. For a second, the mask of discipline seemed to crack. "Perhaps," he said quietly. "The galaxy is smaller than we think." Before she could ask more, an alarm echoed through the ship. A crew officer's voice rang out from the comms. "Contact!" Multiple unidentified signatures, no transponder codes. The Queen and Commander rushed to the command deck. The screens showed a dozen ships emerging from the dark, black vessels without insignia, their surfaces covered in strange, shifting light. They moved in perfect formation, silent and fast. "Defensive pattern," Ryan ordered sharply. "Do not fire until fired upon." The unidentified ships ignored all signals. Within seconds, beams of pale energy tore across space, striking one of the Vioran scouts. The ship exploded in a flash of white light. "Return fire," Ilara commanded. The battle began. The Queen's ship shook as enemy fire struck its shields. Rian stood beside her, giving orders with calm precision. His voice carried a quiet confidence that steadied everyone around him. "Keep rotating shields. Target their engines, not their cores," he said. "They're using automated control patterns." Ilara's eyes widened. "Automated? You mean they're unmanned?" "Yes," Ryan said grimly. "And I've seen this before." The words made her pause, but there was no time to question. The human escorts moved in, covering the Queen's ship while Rian guided them through evasive maneuvers. Minutes later, the unknown vessels withdrew as suddenly as they had appeared, vanishing into the void once more. When silence returned, the damage reports began. 1 ship lost, 2 wounded. But the Queen's vessel was still intact. In the command hall, Ilara faced Rian. "You said you've seen this before," she said quietly. "Where?" Ryan looked at her, then at the stars. "Out there," he said. "In the shadow sectors beyond the trade routes. I've been tracking these ships for years." Ilara frowned. "Years? Then you know who commands them?" Ryan hesitated. "They are remnants of the war. Machines built by both sides, abandoned after peace. But something woke them again. Something that wants to see humans and Viorans destroy each other once more." The Queen studied him. His words carried the weight of experience, and yet there was something deeper in his tone. A personal connection. She stepped closer. "You speak as if this has been your burden alone." He said nothing. Finally, she reached forward and touched the edge of his mask. "Who are you really, Commander?" For a moment he stood still. Then slowly he removed the mask. Ilara's breath caught. The face before her was scarred, older, but the eyes were the same. The eyes she remembered from the smoke of Viora 9, the man who had carried her to safety when all hope was lost. "Ryan," she whispered. He looked down, his voice quiet. "I never wanted you to see me again, Your Majesty. Not until this was finished." You disappeared, she said, her voice trembling with emotion she tried to hide. I searched for you. I built a memorial in your name. I know, he said softly. But if they knew I lived, they would have come for you. These machines track memory patterns and command codes. I had to vanish to keep them from finding you. The hall was silent except for the distant hum of the ship. Ilara stared at him, torn between anger and relief, disbelief and gratitude. You carried that burden alone for 5 years? Ryan nodded. Someone had to, and now it's grown beyond what I can stop alone. Ilara straightened, her expression firm once more. Then you will not fight alone any longer. We face this together. Ryan opened his mouth to protest, but the strength in her gaze silenced him. He knew that arguing with her would be useless. The queen he had once saved was not the same woman. She had become stronger, wiser, unafraid of the dark. As the ship sailed onward toward the Arendor system's outer edge, both knew what awaited them, the heart of the shadows, and the truth behind the threat rising between their worlds. In the quiet after the storm, Ilara looked out the viewport once more. Ryan stood beside her, the stars reflecting in their eyes. 5 years ago, fate had brought them together in the chaos of war. Now it had done so again, not as savior and saved, but as allies standing on the edge of another storm. The Queen of Viora and the human who had vanished were together once more, and somewhere in the endless dark the shadows were watching. The stars stretched endlessly before them as the fleet approached the edge of the Arendor system, a dark and empty stretch of space no one dared enter. Both human and Vioran ships moved cautiously, shields on high alert. Queen Ilara stood on the bridge of her ship, the valiant star beside Ryan Holt, her eyes scanning the sensors for any sign of movement. Ryan's face was calm but tense. The readings are abnormal, he said quietly. This sector was once used by both sides during the war. Secret research stations, experimental fleets, mostly abandoned. But something has reactivated them. Ilara frowned. You said before that these were automated ships. But who controls them now? He shook his head. That's the mystery. There is no central command signal, only the machines themselves. They follow old war directives, striking any human or Vioran ship they encounter. Ilara's hands clenched on the railing. Then they attack both our peoples indiscriminately? Yes, Ryan said grimly. And if we do not stop them now, they will grow, repair themselves, and one day they could destroy both empires. The Queen turned to her bridge crew. Prepare boarding teams, she ordered. We will find the source and shut it down. I will not allow my people to die to old machines built by fear and hatred. The plan was simple but dangerous. Ryan would lead a joint team of humans and Viorans aboard the largest derelict ship they had detected, believed to be the command hub of the rogue fleet. Ilara insisted on going with him, refusing to remain behind while her people risked everything. Hours later, they approached the massive ship. It drifted silently, black and scarred with strange patterns of light flickering across its surface. The derelict hull was enormous, larger than any capital ship in the Veyran or human fleets. Sensors showed minimal activity, yet the energy readings suggested powerful engines lay dormant within. Ryan's voice was calm but edged with tension. This is it. Whatever controls the fleet is inside. Once we enter, the station may wake fully. We have only one chance, Ilara nodded. Then we go together. The boarding pods detached from their ships and shot toward the derelict. Inside, the walls were dimly lit by flickering panels. Dust hung in the air. Every corridor echoed their steps. The Queen and Rian moved side by side, their teams following closely. This place is massive, a Viren soldier whispered. How many ships could it control? Ryan shook his head. Dozens, possibly hundreds. If we don't find the core, all of Arendor is at risk. They reached the central chamber, a vast hall filled with dormant consoles and panels flickering with old codes. At the center stood a sphere of glowing energy, the AI core pulsing like a heartbeat. Ryan examined it carefully. This is it, he said. All the rogue ships follow this signal. If we disable it, the fleet will shut down. Ilara stepped closer. How? Ryan pointed to a sequence of terminals. I can override it, but it will take time. The AI will detect us and send drones to protect itself. You and your people will need to hold the corridors. Ilara's silver eyes gleamed with determination. Then we hold. Together. As Ryan began typing into the consoles, the lights in the hall shifted. From hidden hatches, mechanical drones emerged, sleek and armed with plasma blades. Their movements were precise, attacking immediately. Alara drew her weapon, moving fluidly to protect her team. Humans and Vierans fought side by side, each trusting the other completely. Ryan focused on the override, sweat running down his face. Almost there, he muttered. A drone lunged at him and Alara pushed him aside just in time. Sparks flew as the blade struck the floor. "Ryan, focus!" she shouted. "I am," he yelled back. "Just a few more seconds!" The queen moved like a shadow, her reflexes sharp, guiding her guards to cover the advancing drones. Humans and Viorans made a circle around the AI core, each protecting the other while fighting tirelessly. Finally, Ryan reached the final sequence. His fingers flew across the keys. "Now!" he shouted. The core pulsed violently, a shockwave of energy spreading through the chamber. The drones froze, then collapsed, their systems shutting down. Alara exhaled sharply. "Is it done?" Ryan nodded, though he looked exhausted. "The fleet will follow the shutdown sequence. They will stop and drift harmlessly. But this core is old. Any mistake could destroy us all." For a tense moment, silence filled the hall. Then slowly the lights dimmed and the hum of machinery ceased. The AI was silent. The rogue fleet spread across the Arendor system had gone dark. Alara approached Ryan. "You did it," she said softly. "All of it. You saved both our peoples again." He looked down, almost embarrassed. "I did what I had to. I've been tracking this fleet alone for years. I couldn't risk anyone else getting caught." Alara studied him, her heart swelling with gratitude and admiration. "You've carried this burden alone for so long." "Ryan, why?" He hesitated. "Because if anyone knew I was alive, the AI might have targeted you. I had to stay hidden to keep you safe. You are the reason I survived Viora 9, and I could not let you be harmed again." The queen reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. "I understand now. That is why you disappeared. That is why you became a shadow among the stars." For a moment they stood quietly, the silence filled with unspoken feelings. Then Alara spoke firmly. "You do not have to be alone anymore. The fleet is stopped, but we still face unknown dangers. We face them together." Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes, together." The teams began to move back toward their boarding pods. As they left the central chamber, Ryan explained further. This AI core was programmed to follow old war directives, destroy all enemy ships without distinction. No one thought it would survive this long. I've been dismantling its traces from the shadows, one system at a time, but it grew beyond my control. Only a direct override could stop it completely. Alara listened carefully. "And now? Are there others like this?" Ryan shook his head. "Not that I know of. But war machines are easy to forget yet hard to destroy. This one survived because it was abandoned and hidden. Others could exist, waiting." Ilara's expression hardened. "Then we must remain vigilant. Peace is not just a treaty. It is the effort to protect what we have gained." Back aboard the Valiant Star, the Queen addressed the combined crews. "Today, humans and Vierans fought side by side. We faced danger and survived because we trusted each other. Let this be a reminder. Our strength is not in weapons alone, but in courage, loyalty, and unity. Let it also remind us that no one, human or Vioran, needs to face the shadows alone." The crews cheered quietly, though many were too tired to speak loudly. Yet beneath the relief, a quiet truth lingered. There were things in the universe that could only be stopped by courage and cooperation, and sometimes the greatest courage came from one human willing to risk everything for others. Later, in the observation deck, Alara stood beside Ryan, watching the now quiet fleet. "I owe you my life," she said softly. Ryan smiled faintly. "You already paid me in trust, Your Majesty." "That is more than enough." She shook her head. "No, you saved countless lives. You saved our worlds. You are more than a soldier. You are a guardian." Ryan looked out at the stars. "I was just trying to do what was right. That's all anyone can do." Alara reached out, resting a hand on his arm. "But what you did, it changed everything. You are the bridge between two civilizations. Ryan, you showed that humans and Vierans can stand together, even in the face of darkness." For a long while they stood in silence, the stars stretching infinitely beyond the viewport. Neither spoke of the past 5 years in detail, nor the personal sacrifices, nor the loneliness of Ryan's hidden life. They did not need to. The quiet understanding between them said more than words ever could. As the Valiant Star returned to Veora space, Both knew that this victory did not end the dangers of the universe. There would always be shadows, always threats, always choices that tested courage and loyalty. But they also knew that together they could face them. And for the first time in years, Ryan allowed himself to feel something he had long avoided: hope. Hope that perhaps one day he would not need to be alone in the stars. Queen Alara watched him, silent but proud. The man who had once saved her life had returned not as a hero of legend, but as a protector, a guide, and a partner in facing the unknown. Somewhere, deep in the void of space, other dangers stirred, but for now, humans and Viorans had found a fragile victory, bound by trust, courage, and the quiet bond between a queen and the man who had vanished into legend. The journey back to Viora Prime was quiet. The valiant star moved through the silent corridors of space, escorted by human and Vioran ships that had survived the encounter with the rogue fleet. The stars stretched endlessly, calm after the chaos of the Arendor system. Queen Alara stood on the observation deck, gazing at the distant glow of her homeworld. 5 years had passed since the day she had been rescued on Viora 9. 5 years of peace that had been built on the courage of one human. And now the man who had saved her, Ryan Holt, stood quietly beside her, watching the same stars. The silence between them was comfortable. They had fought together, faced danger, and survived. Words were not always necessary to understand the bond that had formed between them. Finally, Alara spoke softly. "It feels strange to see home again after all we've been through." Ryan nodded. "It will feel strange for a while. Nothing is the same after what we've faced. And yet some things remain constant." She turned to him. "You mean people? Loyalty? Courage?" He allowed a faint smile. "Yes, and perhaps hope." Alara's eyes softened. "Hope. That is something I've carried since the day you saved me. I never forgot. I never will." For a moment they stood in silence, letting the weight of the past and the relief of survival fill the space between them. Then the fleet began to descend toward Viora Prime. The cities glimmered under twin suns, silver towers catching the light, and rivers of crystal blue water reflecting the sky. As they entered the upper atmosphere, alarms sounded on the Queen's ship. "Majesty," a human officer reported, "Vioran High Command and Earth Council representatives are awaiting our arrival. They are transmitting formal requests to debrief immediately." Alara nodded. "Let them wait. The first thing I will do is speak with the people who fought with me." The fleet landed in formation near the royal platform. Crowds had gathered, Viorans and humans alike, watching the ships descend. Whispers ran through the crowd. Some recognized the story of the Queen and the unknown human, but few had expected him to be alive. As the boarding ramp lowered, Alara stepped forward. Ryan followed, keeping a steady presence behind her. Murmurs spread among the observers as they recognized him, Ryan Holt, the man who had vanished into legend 5 years ago. The Queen addressed the crowd, her voice carrying across the platform. "People of Viora, people of Earth, today we return from the shadows of space. We faced a threat born of our past mistakes, machines built to destroy, left unchecked for years. Together humans and Viorans stopped them, and together we will face the future no matter what darkness may come." The crowd fell silent, awed by her words. Then slowly applause and cheers rose. Humans and Viorans alike clapped, cheered, and shouted, celebrating not only the survival of their leaders but the unity that had brought them victory. Alara turned toward Ryan. "It is time," she said softly, "for the truth to be known." He inclined his head. "I am ready." The Queen guided him to the center of the platform. "This man," she announced to the crowd, "is Ryan Holt. 5 years ago he saved my life on Viora 9. He carried me through fire, danger, and despair when everyone else abandoned hope. He disappeared afterward, but he lived in the shadows to protect not only me but both our worlds. Today he stands before you, alive, and a reminder that courage and honor can exist even in the darkest times." The crowd erupted into applause again, louder and more emotional this time. Ryan stood tall, accepting the acknowledgement with quiet dignity. He did not seek fame or reward, only the knowledge that his actions had made a difference. Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. "I owe you my life," she whispered, her voice soft. "You already saved me, Your Majesty," he replied quietly. "We both did what we had to do." "That is enough," yet the Queen smiled. "No, it is more than enough. It is everything. For the first time since their reunion, Rian allowed himself to relax. He had carried burdens alone for years, hidden, haunted, and always moving through the void. But now, he could feel a part of that weight lift. He had been recognized, honored, and trusted. And standing beside him was the queen he had once saved, stronger than ever, and yet still deeply human in her compassion. Later, in the royal palace, Ilara guided Ryan to the Hall of Memory. The statue of the unknown human still stood, its white crystal flower glinting under the twin suns. The queen touched the stone. "This is where I placed your memory when the world thought you were gone," she said. "I never forgot you, Ryan. And now you are here, living proof that courage and kindness endure." Ryan knelt briefly before the statue, then looked up. "It is more than I ever imagined," he said softly. "To be remembered like this, I never expected it." "You deserve it," Ilara said firmly. "Not because of what you did for me alone, but for what you did for all of us. For hope, for life, for peace." As days passed, the Queen and Ryan worked together to rebuild trust between their worlds. Conferences, debriefings, and diplomatic missions filled their schedules. But in moments of quiet, they found time to speak privately, to remember the past, and to plan for the future. One evening on the palace balcony, the twin suns casting golden light over the city, Ilara turned to Ryan. "You have lived among the stars for years, yet you returned here." "Why?" Ryan paused, gazing at the horizon. "Because someone once trusted me with their life," he said slowly. "And because I knew that the darkness I fought alone would not survive if we did not stand together. You taught me that courage is not in hiding, but in protecting what is right, even when it is dangerous." Ilara smiled softly. "Then let us protect it together, not as queen and soldier, but as allies, friends, and perhaps more." Ryan met her gaze. For the first time, he allowed a flicker of hope, a feeling he had long denied himself. "Yes," he said quietly. "Together." In the following weeks, Viora and Earth celebrated not only the end of a great danger, but the return of a man who had vanished into legend. Statues were dedicated, memorials created, and stories of courage were told in both worlds. Yet among all the ceremonies and speeches, one quiet truth remained: peace had been born from bravery, and hope had been kept alive by the actions of one human and one alien queen who chose to trust each other. Ilara and Ryan often walked together in the palace gardens, observing the rivers and crystal towers, sharing moments of quiet laughter and reflection. There were no titles in these walks, no soldiers or advisors watching every move. Only two individuals who had seen the worst of war and the best of courage. "Do you ever regret leaving?" Ilara asked one afternoon, watching the sunlight glint off the water. Rian shook his head. "No, I had to survive. I had to protect. And now I am here, with you, with them. I have found my place." She looked at him, warmth in her silver eyes. "And you have shown us all what one person can do." "One person can change the course of history, Ryan Holt." He smiled faintly. "I just did what anyone should do. Stand up when the shadows come. Protect those who cannot protect themselves, and never give up hope." Ilara nodded. "Then let us ensure that hope lasts. Not only for Viora and Earth, but for all who look to the stars and wonder if courage can survive in the darkness." As evening fell over Viora Prime, the twin moons rising in the sky, the queen and the man who had disappeared 5 years ago stood together, watching the horizon. Shadows still existed in the universe. Unknown dangers, hidden fleets, threats waiting in silence, but for now, they had survived. They had faced the impossible and returned stronger, wiser, and united. In the quiet glow of the moons, Ryan spoke softly. 5 years and gone, and yet here we are. You kept your promise, Ilara, and now, we keep ours. The queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Ryan. Together." For the first time in years, there was no war, no loss, no shadow that could shake their resolve. Only the vast universe stretched before them, full of challenges yet untouched by fear. They had faced darkness and emerged into the light. And in the hearts of humans and Viorans alike, a story was born, a story of courage, honor, hope, and the bond between one queen and the man who returned. The end.